All right, hi everyone, and welcome to this episode of the Free Film School. Today I'm interviewing Sean Drummond. Sean is going to be talking today about genre, and I'm really excited to be asking him questions about genre because I teach a course on genre. So this is for my students in my film genres course, but I'm hoping it will be useful for a whole bunch of students out there who want to know how producers, writers, directors might think about the concept of genre and use it. So Sean, welcome. Could you just tell us a bit about who you are and what you do?
Cool. Hi, Alexia. Hi, everybody. Thanks for having me. So my name is Sean Drummond. I'm a writer and producer at BFAT Motel Film Company, which is a company based in Cape Town. We did the film Fingers For Marseilles, which I wrote and produced. We also did Apocalypse Now, the short film as a proof of concept a couple of years ago. We're working on the feature at the moment, which is an adaptation of Charlie Human's insane, incredible novel, supernatural thriller set in Cape Town. Five Fingers is a Western. We've also worked in science fiction. We did a film called Sweetheart almost 10 years ago now, which was our first foray into trying to take genre film, because myself and Michael Matthews, my partner at BFAT, we're big genre guys, and so we get very excited about the idea of taking genre and trying to explore it within a South African context, often turn it in on itself and try and be quite smart about what you can do with genre while still playing to the conventions and the codes that people recognize. So that's sort of the sort of thing that we like to do and the sort of films that we like to make.
Wonderful, thank you so much. That's why you're the perfect person to be talking to today. So I wanted to know, just for everyone out there, what do you actually think of when you use the word genre? What is it? How is it useful? How do you think about it?
Oh, interesting. I mean, I would say genre is probably an accepted set of rules and codes and recognizable conventions that mean a film falls into quite a clear category. So it's a thriller, and you know what the rules of a thriller are, or a rom-com, or a horror film, or a western, which is the one maybe that I could talk about most, hopefully most clearly, because we made one. And the goal with Five Fingers was to be very much a Western, true to the genre, playing within the archetypes, the codes, the characters, the storylines that are familiar to people, but then reinvented in a way that's very true to South Africa, and trying to, if not say something, ask questions about the South Africa we live in today, because I'm not a big fan of films that beat you over the head with a message, but I'm a big fan of films that ask questions and try and prompt a response from us as the viewer. And within a Western, while we were developing Five Fingers, we immersed ourselves fully in the Western, which is watching every Western under the sun, reading the scripts of Westerns, but also looking at a lot of Western theory and going into what is a Western and what are the things that are recognizable and archetypal about the Western, such as character archetypes. So the outlaw, the man with the mysterious past, running from his past maybe, or a mayor, or a chief of police, or the pastor of the church on the hill, the owner of the tavern, the black hat villain. All of these sort of recognizable characters and tropes are things that are familiar to a viewer, and I think because they're so familiar, they actually free you up as the filmmaker to get a lot more interesting and subtle with the themes and the things that you're exploring. If that makes sense. Quite a long answer to maybe like a simple question, or the initial question, but that's what we were trying to do with Five Fingers, was play on all of those recognizable genre tropes. And the groundwork is done. The audience member comes in and they're immediately familiar with what they're seeing, which means you don't have to do all of that setting of the scene, because it's in a sense it's set. You can take the story somewhere that's more powerful and more meaningful.
Great, thank you. I always find genre is one of those things that seems simple, but it's really complicated. It has so many layers. It works in so many ways. So I think your answer really reveals that. Thank you.
It's an interesting thing about that, because, sorry to cut you off, but it's an
Yeah,
interesting thing because audiences are smart, and I think especially our media audiences are especially media savvy, and understand the rules of the genre as well as the filmmakers do, which is why it's quite easy to lose them if you get them wrong. But then the potential is also there to really give them something new and transformative if you get them right, but then still take them somewhere where they haven't been before. So it's an interesting challenge. It's a fun and dangerous place to be playing.
Yeah, I think that's lovely because you kind of pinpointed the way genre is kind of like something that's shared between viewers and what we want, what we expect, and creators in terms of what they are, what they're able to kind of communicate.
Yeah, because it's a very shared experience. We the film making experience is shared by everybody who's involved in the making of the film. Film is such a collaborative art form. There's so many different levels of collaboration, between business and creativity, because film is an industry and no film makes without being financed, between creativity and artisanship, for want of a better word, because people have to realize the vision, between creatives and technicians, because film is so technical. So there's no film that's driven by a singular vision of one maverick individual, even though I think a lot of the myth around the film industry is made like that. It's not like that. A film that succeeds is a result of a huge number of people coming together and doing the best version they can do at their jobs, which is something I like to talk about as a writer. But I guess it applies as a producer too. As a writer, my job is to put down the best version of a story on the page, which is there to serve not as, like the best version of telling the story, because that's insane. It's the script. It needs to inspire everybody else to do a better job of telling the story, from the director to the cinematographer to every single actor who's given a character and gets to take it infinitely deeper. And that applies to the producer as well, because you want to assemble the best team of people suited to realizing that vision. So with Five Fingers, Michael and I did months of travel and research around the country, and then assemble our team, who are amazing filmmakers who we've worked with for almost 15 years, and said, this is what we're doing. It's a South African Western. It needs to sit on the line between being a Western that's true to the heart of the Western without being gimmicky, because that was important, but it also needs to be very South African. And then with our co-producers at Game 7 Films, Yaron Schwartzman and Asghar Hussain, and with Dylan and Marcel at Stage 5 Films, and a host of amazing people, we sort of put that package together. And then you make the film, you retell the story so many times, but then there's another collaborative experience, which is when you take it to an audience. And the audience gives you 2 hours of their time to sit and watch this thing, and you have to, it's a shared experience. You've got to you give them something that they become part of the experience of watching that. And and actually, once you've made the film, it's theirs. It's not yours. So they take whatever they want from it. They experience different things in it, and they take whatever meaning they want out of it too. And it's been really interesting with Five Fingers to see how many different interpretations and meanings have come back. And that's actually, even when they come so far of left field, you sort of go like, wow, I mean, that wasn't something we were thinking about making the film. It's a huge compliment. It's amazingly gratifying, because it means that people have taken it and done something with it, and it's become a shared experience.
Yes, I think that's a wonderful description of how genre works and how film works, as this collective experience, both like on the sort of the creative side and in terms of the creative interpretation side. It's wonderful. It's going to be so useful for my students. So thank you.
Cool.
And then I have one final question, which is I find a lot of people tend to talk about genre as something that can be limiting, or something that is kind of like, it sort of constrains, or it's sort of repetitive. And I know you started to actually touch on this already, but in what ways do you think genre can sort of be used creatively?
Well, I think genre, this is an interesting one that I probably need to think about, but it feels like genre evolves, film evolves technically. The way we tell stories now is very different to how they used to tell stories. In fact, it sort of evolves in every single way. Like, acting styles have evolved, directing styles have evolved, writing styles have evolved. And I think if genre stops evolving, then it sort of dies, right? So you have this interesting challenge where, like I was saying before, you have to be true to the established creed. Otherwise, you're going to throw two people far out. But you also have an opportunity to go, well, how can we take this and go further with it? How can we? And I think the Western is one it's been done all over the world, right? People have actually, the Western, you could argue, comes from samurai films, and so there's a constant dance between genre and what we do with it, and so it's limiting in the sense that you have to get it right enough that it does the job.
Yes.
But it's also, it offers a wealth of opportunity because like I say, if you set that foundation, you can take it in so many different directions that actually kind of evokes some kind of new reaction out of audiences. So I don't know, I can talk about the Five Fingers again, that Westernness versus South Africanness. And because the film had this 7-year gestation period, there was a lot of time to constantly go back and kind of dig into it and go, what do we want this to be? What is this film? And when we started it, we were probably quite young. So we were sort of in our mid-20s, started this journey to make the movie, and the things that didn't change were the themes and what we wanted the film to explore. But I think probably a lot of what did change was the treatment and how it was going to be done. And as we matured, the film definitely matured, and because there are all these very superficial comparisons between like being remote and towns, and the idea of there being sort of a new frontier, and even some of the ways that people dress, because we spent so much time in Lady Grey, the town, a lot of how they dressed, was almost Westernish, and guys were walking around the streets in cowboy hats and riding horses, and we're going, wow, that's amazing. And then there are taverns, and there's a degree of self-law and high stakes and survival and land and all of these things that are in there. And so our challenge became, how do we make sure this isn't very superficial and gimmicky? And it's not just South Africans playing Western, like playing cowboy. That's not actually what a Western is. When you go and you look at it, through the eras of, like classic Westerns and revisionist spaghetti Westerns, revisionist Westerns, into neo-Westerns, and this sort of like whatever we're in now, which is like a post-Western Westernness. And especially looking at films like Baccarat and films that are like taking the genre to really, and then even American films like No Country for Old Men was something we looked at, or not Once Upon a Time in the West. There Will Be Blood, although Once Upon a Time in the West, and then you look at the spaghetti Westerns and Once Upon a Time and the Dollars trilogy, and the good Westerns were going all the way back to High Noon, actually, and The Searchers, which is one of my favorites. They explore big themes. So sort of on the surface, they're about the conquest, and a lot of the old Westerns are about the conquest of the West and the taking of the land, and the heroic men who did that. But then as the genre evolved, it became a lot about what's the toll attached to that. And, are these good men? Are they bad men? Are these good actions? Are they not? And a lot of the good Westerns had these social and political threads sewn into them and questions. So that was what we wanted to tap into, and especially looking at the 4 kind of pillars of the Western, which is all conflict. Storytelling in film is all conflict, is the mantra, and the Western is such pure storytelling because it's all conflict. The conflict is literally the heart of the story, and it's always kind of man against man, or man is a stand-in for like character against character, but then character against himself became a very big part of the storytelling. And our relationship with the land is a big story, a big pillar of the West. And then the 4th is maybe something that's the most recent on but it's sort of us collectively, humanity against the passage of time and the forces of history. Good Westerns, I think, play on all of those themes strongly, and all of those themes are also super applicable to South Africa today. And so we wanted the film to explore all of those things, thus being a Western at its like truest form, but then also very much South African. And I mean, like we short video, so we don't have time to get into all that, but hopefully, I mean, there's some good articles about it, and there's some really, really interesting takes on the film that hopefully
There's
are Googleable.
I feel like I could ask you 100 million questions about this, because there's so many fascinating things, particularly about that land question, about how how those things work out in South Africa. So maybe we need to think about finding another way to explore those questions in a follow-up thing or something.
Yeah, sure.
Because
Definitely.
there's so many rich themes to discuss there, and I also just want to chat about it at some point. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'm at home.
Yeah,
I'm
this is
here.
true. I know where to go. You're trapped. So Sean, thank you so very much
Cool.
for
Thank you.
it's exactly the information I was looking for, and I think we're all going to really enjoy listening to this. So thank you.